Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. If I'm honest, I never thought I'd stand in front of a crowd to talk about this particular moment in my life. But maybe that's the strange thing about pain. It demands to be heard, even when you try to keep it quiet. Even when you dress it up as something else. Even when you try to bury it beneath humor, success, distractions, or silence. I want to tell you a story. It starts with something so seemingly small, something harmless, an invitation. That's it. Just an invitation. A few words sent over text, a phone call, maybe even a smile stretched across a face that I trusted. At the time, it felt like an opportunity. It felt like life knocking, saying, "Come out. Be alive. Be part of something." And God, how I wanted to be part of something. That invitation was to a party, one of those that everyone talked about. The kind that made the rounds in school, or work, or your friend group. You know the type. Music loud enough to drown out your doubts, laughter echoing through rooms thick with smoke and spilled drinks, and people who seemed like they belonged to something bigger, something electric. I wanted in. I wanted to feel that pulse in my chest, to say yes to something for once in my life instead of making excuses, instead of staying home with my overthinking mind. I said yes. I wish I hadn't. I still remember what I wore that night. Isn't that strange? I don't remember what I had for breakfast 3 days ago, but I remember the texture of the fabric on my skin, the way I stood in front of the mirror and practiced my smile, the way my stomach twisted between anticipation and anxiety. I remember thinking, this could be good for me. I believed it. That maybe stepping outside of my comfort zone would be the thing that saved me from the loneliness that had been clinging to me for months. So I went. I showed up. I laughed at jokes I didn't understand, danced to songs I didn't know, nodded at strangers like they were old friends. For a little while, I convinced myself I belonged. For a little while, I let the lights and the noise erase the quiet ache I'd carried inside me. But the thing about invitations is that they don't always come with disclaimers. No one tells you what's waiting for you on the other side. No one warns you that what seems like fun might carry consequences that echo for years. No one says, hey, you might lose a piece of yourself tonight that you'll never get back. I met someone at that party, let's call them a friend, although in hindsight, that word feels too generous. They were magnetic, the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly command attention. I was drawn in, like a moth to a flame, not realizing how easily I could get burned. They offered me a drink. I said yes. They offered me something stronger. I hesitated. Only for a moment, and then said yes again. I said yes because I didn't want to be the one who said no. Because I thought that saying yes made me brave, made me likable, made me less of an outsider. I didn't realize I was already sacrificing my boundaries just to belong. I didn't realize how many pieces of myself I'd hand over that night without even noticing. One yes turned into another, and then another. And before I knew it, I wasn't entirely myself anymore. Things got blurry, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. There were moments I can't remember, moments I wish I could forget, and moments I wish I'd never lived through in the first place. There was a room. There was a conversation that shifted from fun to uncomfortable. There was a touch that lingered too long, words that felt more like commands than questions, and my own voice, shrinking, weakening, disappearing. I remember trying to laugh it off, to not cause a scene. I remember looking around and realizing that no one else was paying attention, or maybe they just didn't care. I remember the moment I froze, the exact second when I knew something was wrong, deeply wrong. But I stayed. I stayed because I thought I was supposed to. I stayed because I didn't know how to leave. I stayed because I didn't want to be the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one who ruined the night. And in staying, I betrayed myself. The worst part of trauma isn't always the moment it happens. It's the echo. It's the way it follows you afterward. It's the way it rewrites your brain, your heart, your sense of self. It's how you wake up the next day and feel like a stranger in your own skin. It's how your laughter becomes a performance, how your trust begins to rot, how your memories become landmines. That invitation cost me more than anyone could have known. I wish I could tell you that I walked away from that night and found healing immediately, that I knew how to process what had happened. But I didn't. For a long time, I told myself it wasn't that bad. I minimized it. I blamed myself. I thought maybe if I'd worn something different, said something different, drunk a little less, maybe then it wouldn't have happened. Maybe then I wouldn't feel like I was carrying this invisible weight on my chest every single day. No one teaches you how to grieve a version of yourself that you lost in a room full of people who didn't even notice. And yet, there I was grieving. I withdrew from people. I pushed away the ones who cared. I stopped answering texts. I became quieter, smaller. I began to mistrust any invitation, even the ones that came from a place of love. Because how could I tell what was safe anymore? How could I separate danger from delight? How could I trust my own judgment when it had led me into harm? Some days, the shame was so loud I couldn't hear anything else. It whispered that I was stupid, that I was weak, that I had asked for it, that I deserved what happened. And I believed it. That's the cruelest part, when the voice of your pain starts sounding like your own. But here's the thing. The human spirit, as fragile as it can feel, has this strange resilience tucked deep within it. A quiet defiance. And somehow, over time and with help, though I didn't know how to ask for it at first, I began to reclaim pieces of myself. It didn't happen all at once. There were no dramatic breakthroughs, no sudden sunrises. It was slow. It was messy. It was crying in the shower, journaling until my hands cramped, screaming into pillows, and learning how to breathe again when the panic returned. I began to talk. Not to everyone, not at first, but to someone, and then to another. And every time I spoke the truth aloud, the shame loosened its grip, just a little. Every time I stopped protecting the people who had hurt me and started protecting myself instead, I grew stronger. But still, if I could go back and erase that night, if I could decline that invitation, I would. Because that version of me, the one who smiled at the mirror, who believed the night might change her life in a good way, she didn't deserve what happened. She didn't deserve the fallout. And I grieve her. I carry her with me. And maybe that's why I'm speaking today. Not just for myself, but for anyone else who's ever accepted an invitation and regretted it. For anyone who's ever been hurt in a place that was supposed to be safe. For anyone who's carried shame that was never theirs to hold. We don't talk enough about how easily life can pivot on a single decision. One yes can lead to years of unraveling. One moment of wanting to belong can become a lifetime of trying to heal. And yet we pretend these moments are rare, isolated. But they're not. They happen every day, in dorm rooms, in house parties, in friend circles, in places where fun is weaponized and silence is the currency of survival. And so, I carry the memory of that night not because I want to, God knows I've tried to forget, but because it shaped me, because it cracked something open in me, because it taught me to be fiercely protective of myself in ways I hadn't been before. It taught me that saying no isn't weakness, it's power. It taught me that not every invitation deserves a yes. Some deserve silence. Some deserve a door slammed shut. And if you, listening to me now, have your own version of this story, if there's an invitation you wish you'd never accepted, a moment that changed you in all the wrong ways, I want you to know this. You are not alone. What happened to you is not your fault. Your pain is valid. Your healing is yours to claim, in your own time, in your own way. The invitation I wish I never accepted came wrapped in promise, but it delivered pain. And yet, from that pain, I have built something, slowly, imperfectly. I have built boundaries. I have built self-respect. I have built a voice, cracked and raw, but mine. And maybe that's what survival looks like, taking the ashes of a moment you didn't choose and finding a way to breathe again.